I find it interesting how quickly the Polar Express is becoming a pop culture staple thanks to the movie. I mean, we now have train stations all around that hold a Polar Express train ride, so it's really becoming something. And it all started with another one of Chris Van Allsburg's hit novels. Released in 1985, this little tale recounts of a young man catching a magical train ride on Christmas Eve to see Santa at the North Pole. Apparently, Chris was inspired to make this story by a vision he once had of a train just sitting there in the snow and imagined the steam coming out of the top into the atmosphere. From there on, he described the process of writing the story as though he was recalling a repressed memory or a reoccurring dream, which perfectly explains the almost dreamlike atmosphere of the book. In 2004, the collective efforts of Tom Hanks and Robert Zemeckis brought this story to the big screen. And when I say collective, I mean we have Tom Hanks multitasking in 5 different roles as well as executive producing, and Robert Zemeckis double casting his wife in bit roles as well as directing. It was the first of many ventures from Zemeckis' Image Movers studio into the realm of 3D animated motion capture technology, and that's why it's considered a landmark. That's all pretty fascinating, but you're not here for the history lesson. You're here to see how well this movie stacks up against the book. Alright then, let's have a read. In this book, a nameless young boy sees a train stopped outside his house on Christmas Eve. He makes the choice to hop on the train, and from there it's a long journey that I admit is quite glossed over. There's mention of the chefs serving hot chocolate, the train tearing up and down the mountains, and really, that's about it. There's barely any details. That's where the film comes in, not just adding in scenes and details, but also stretching out the details already put into play and making mountains out of molehills in order to create a conflict. A number of different characters are added here. On top of the conductor playing a larger role in this story, we have other kids like Hero Girl, Hobo Tom Hanks, mostly nameless lonely kid, and voice actor Eddie Deason as Eddie Deason. I can't think of how else to describe this guy because after all these years, his voice never changes.
That lame-o Grimmy disguise won't fool me. Ha, ha, ha. Which one of you freaks ordered the ice cream cake? Yes, Dexter, I can read your thoughts, and I am smarter than you. Do you know what kind of train this is? Actually, it's a Baldwin 284 S3 class Berkshire-type steam locomotive.
You see what I mean? It's kind of creepy. At this rate, maybe he'll finish puberty when he hits 70. To make things more complicated, the motion capture performances for all these kids are done by fully grown men and women, half of which are voiced over by kids and have some mocap stand-in help from real kids, including Josh Hutcherson.
Biatch.
This begs the question as to why they didn't just go with hiring child actors in the first place like they did later with Monster House. Well, apparently Zemeckis wanted it to be dreamlike for the hero kid in the same sense as how The Wizard of Oz recast actors who played Dorothy's family as Oz characters to make her dreams seem more familiar, and gave actor Frank Morgan a total of 5 different roles. So 5 Hankses it was and other adult actors to match his size. As for the other parts, my guess is Tom Hanks just wanted to make this flick a secret bosom buddies reunion. Yep, that guy right there playing Loner Kid, that's Hanks' old sitcom partner Peter Scolari. The more you know. As far as the story is concerned, the hot chocolate scene is now a show-stopping cabaret number. Every main character has some sort of arc to go through, and there's a relentless amount of CGI scenery eye candy here that's great to look at, but adds next to nothing whatsoever to the story. Agreed, the greatest strength of Chris's books was always his amazing standout artwork. In a film, it also comes across as padding. Do we need to follow the motion path of the girl's train ticket as it floats through the woods, or is this just Zemeckis showing off his new software? This film marks an interesting point in Robert Zemeckis' career. In his heyday, he was described as being a CGI whiz kid. When looking at his earlier works, the special effects aren't just there for the sake of being there. They're there for advancing the story or even being a character. Whether it was Roger Rabbit and the special effects took up over half the cast, or Back to the Future where there's really just very few visual effects shots and that's what makes them stand out. Forrest Gump blew audiences away by sticking Tom Hanks into different points of history and using a CGI feather as an opening and closing motif. And is that movie known as a huge special effects extravaganza? Nope. Polar Express indicated a different direction in his career where effects were no longer there to tell the story. Instead, effects were everything, just like every other studio blockbuster out there. With Polar Express and the films that followed, like Beowulf, it was less about the story and more about pushing the technology. And what was that Siskel and Ebert said about Jumanji?
Because you can do special effects, that doesn't mean you have to do them wall to wall.
They have to be at the service
right
of the story.
You got it.
All right, Ebert. You now have my permission to use that argument against this movie. The Polar Express is a movie for more than one season that will become a perennial shared by the generations, yada yada yada. Okay, for Forrest Gump 2, let's make sure that that feather has a traveling across the world sequence. So what can we expect from the film's story? The conductor almost ready to throw the girl off the train over a missing ticket she got for free from him to begin with, some action scenes with a ghost hobo who acts as a drive-by mentor, another song to pass the time, the train getting stopped by caribou, and a look at Santa's new toy recycling program. A toy recycling program? That sounds familiar.
Pre-loved toys to the rescue!
Hashtag self-promotion, there's the link below. You're welcome, Mom. The one book element kept at this point was how quickly the train zipped through the mountains. Chris wanted to give the impression here that the train was all-powerful and able to do amazing things. But that's not the only reason the film keeps that part in. The other reason is just to give the audience the impression that they're on a roller coaster. In 3D!
I suggest we all hold on tirelessly!
Whoa! Tell Grandma to hold on to her dentures!
It's at this point in the book where the train arrives at the North Pole and all the kiddies get to meet with Santa. Again, the film still has technology to show off, so we have the kids getting lost in Santa's toy factory and some 3D water sliding action to get through before they meet Santa. And when it comes to that, there's so much build-up you have to cut through it with a buck knife. From there on, it mostly sticks to the book for the ending. Santa gives the kid a bell as the first gift of Christmas, which he loses thanks to a hole in his pocket on the way home. Fortunately for him, Santa makes sure to leave it under the tree for him the very next day. But some of you might be thinking, it's just a bell, it's not a Nintendo, what's the big deal? Well, actually, the bell's significance is pretty major. Remember what I said about Dr. Seuss stories pretty much every time I've talked about movies based on Dr. Seuss stories? How extending the story ruins the simplistic nature of the book because they try to blow it out of proportion? I didn't get that with Jumanji and Zathura, but I did get it with the Polar Express, and I think I now know why. In the case of Jumanji, the book story, or what's left of it, is neatly sandwiched right in the middle of the film while being woven into a much larger story arc, so it doesn't feel padded or bloated in any sense. Zathura does pad out its story, but the action, pacing, and obvious Jumanji clone status help cushion the blow a bit and slightly lower your expectations. With the Polar Express, we have all the glitz and glamour their computers can muster up, and that's still not enough for scenes like this. Yeah, that was attractive. I wonder if he speaks whale too. However, in terms of plot elements, the film has to manufacture a conflict to make the hero kid's story more interesting, and that conflict is whether or not he believes in Santa Claus. I know, all this effort to put something together and the conflict is about as Rankin-Bass Hallmark card as you can get. This was never a problem for the kid in the book. He says right on the first page a friend of his doesn't believe in Santa, but he does. That's why the bell at the end of the story is so important, because it's a symbol of believing in the spirit of the holiday. The boy's parents ring the bell and can't hear it because they no longer believe. It's the hero kid for whom the bell never stops ringing because he never stops believing. The film does the service of keeping that theme intact, same ending and everything. But in the beginning, it's the hero boy who is skeptic from the get-go, which is why the conductor has to talk him into getting on the train to begin with.
Sounds to me like this is your crucial year. If I were you, I would think about climbing on board.
Am I the only one who gets a threatening tone when he says that? The skepticism comes up again periodically throughout the film in conversations with the hobo, and hinted at when the girl can hear the ringing bells off in the distance, but he can't. This is why it rather perplexes me in the climax when they reach the North Pole. They're about to meet Santa for the first time, and he's still skeptic. After everything he's been through, he has to be the most stubborn kid who ever lived at this point. Come on, kid, you just rode a train to the North Pole. That's impossible, but you still did it. You just went into the elf's workshop whizzing around on slides. You landed in Santa's giant toy sack. Everything that you've seen here is just like you see it in the movies. What more could you possibly need? Yes, of course that's him standing in the doorway. I don't care if you don't get a good look at him. Who else dresses like that? I don't see any mall Santas around here, do you? Come on! What do you need, kid?
I believe. I believe.
That's it? You just had to say it? Well, snap, you could have done that at home and saved us a whole trip. In the end, it helps that the film still maintains the moral and spirit of the book. It's just that with so many other adaptations, it doesn't know how to be subtle about it. Any more forcing and I would have choked on it. But I didn't. Nor can I really say this was a bad adaptation. Only question now is, which is better, the book or the movie? Scale of betterness. The book wins slightly.
Whatever that's supposed to mean.
It means you should practice speaking a little bit more from the diaphragm. Yeah, here we have another case of a book's simplicity just barely winning out. I say barely because creating a conflict didn't work out as well as the filmmakers thought. Still, that doesn't ruin the entire film. For trying to make Chris's artwork come to life, this was really the best they could do at the time. It was Bob showing off his new mocap toys, they just hadn't been perfected yet. For something that's supposed to look realistic, it doesn't. A lot of the animation still looks very marionette-like, and the graphics are somewhere between Xbox 360 and Xbox One. That's fine though, it's not supposed to look real, and it would still be several years before the technology really started looking good. I think Ebert may have been right about this one. It was a hit with audiences, it's still showing on TV, and personally, I find it's been growing on me. All in all, a fine job they did here. It's just not the book. Well, that about wraps things up for this little trilogy. Don't forget to join me next time, and this Christmas season, and everyone that follows, be like that Polar Express kid. Never stop that feeling that the holiday season gives you. Whether you're young, or old, or in between, never stop believing in the spirit of Christmas. And whatever you do, don't stop ringing that bell. Merry Christmas, and ciao for now.
If I were you, I would think about climbing on board.
I'm David Pumpkins! Any questions?
If you like what you saw here, please, please, please try to help support it. I have a Patreon page. You can help me by going over there, throwing some money, whatever amount that you like to throw in. If you're not watching this on YouTube, I also have a YouTube channel. So go there and hit that subscribe button to be notified whenever new videos and new content come out. I'm also on Facebook. Go over there and like that page so you can be notified as well whenever a new episode or video of some sort come out, as well as exclusive behind-the-scenes content. You can also hit me up on Twitter over there to see what kind of stuff that I like to share. Just be warned though, I don't like getting too many messages. So if you're constantly sending me stuff all the time, I can get really agitated. Remember, my privacy is golden. And if you like my t-shirt, I got a t-shirt store over there too. I got links, I got fresh designs, I got new stuff coming out over there. Provided, of course, that anything actually sells. That's about it. If you like what I do, hit that like button, Facebook me, tweet me, share me on your little social networking sites, do whatever you gotta do. Email me to all your little friends, and that's all I gotta say. Thank you, and peace.